Today, I'm here with Lori DeBoe, Assistant Director of our Learning Growth at Altamont, and we will be discussing guideline number 5, which states, remember always that success will come when you not only have the right materials in the classroom, but the conversations that support them. Celebrate feel-good moments and give yourself and others grace, knowing you are on a journey to get there. So Lori, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and please talk about the position that you held when you were in this first cohort.
So my name is Lori DeBolt. I worked at our in-school preschools over in Independence, Summit View Academy. And when I first joined the cohort, it was a self-journey for me. It was self-discovery, and it took a while. You know, we had a lot of discussions in the cohort and a lot of soul searching. So I had to get past that before I could actually bring it into the classroom. And it was kind of a journey at Summit View, because from the principals all the way down to the janitorial people were all white. We had a few African American children, maybe a few Asian children, and a couple of Mexicans, but in my classroom, it was predominantly white. So I had to really think out of the box how I was going to present this material and this theme to my kids at Summit View. So
Okay, I can just imagine that had to be a real journey, especially when there was no diversity in your classroom at all. And I'll bet some parents and the children were wondering, why are we talking about these things?
Okay. Exactly, yeah. So what I started with was, you know, like all typical teachers do, bringing the multicultural markers in and the multicultural crayons and some posters of African Americans, you know, the multicultural skin tone paper and all that. And I realized that it was just paper to them. It was just markers to them. It was just people to them. And it was, so then I had to do a self journey back of, okay, this is not cutting it. How do I move it forward? So Denise, you gave me this book. What if all the children were white? And I read it, and it gave me a new perspective of different things that I could bring into the classroom. And so I started bringing in different books. And one of the books was All the Colors We Are. And it talks about the melanin in our skin. And I was reading with it with a group of 4.5, 5-year-olds that were getting ready to go to kindergarten. My leaders, you can say, of the classroom. And we just got on this topic of discussion of, you know, well, what is melanin? What is, you know, and I explained there are little tiny pigments in our skin that, you know, some people have a lot of melanin and some people don't have a lot of melanin. And in the book, it has like different shades of black and a different shades of white. And we were looking at that, and they were like, and then they looked at mine and said, you have a lot of melanin in your skin. And I said, well, I tan easy. So when the sun comes out, the melanin comes out. I said, you know, some of the people, and we brought out some pictures, and I said, look, and look through the pictures and stuff, and I was like, he has a lot of melanin because his skin is really dark. And they were like, yeah. And so they were talking about that, and we brought in like color shading and different things like that into the classroom. And after they noticed the differences of the colors, we started talking about what's the same about us. What, you know, we all have hair, we all have eyes, we all have, you know, different, you know, color eyes, but we all have eyes. Some people wear glasses, some people don't wear glasses. Some people have black hair, some people have white hair, some have yellow hair, but we all have it. And they were like, yeah. So they kind of took it and just ran with it that way. And then they kind of was bringing the younger kids into the fold. And I kind of stepped back and watched the process happen. I'm going to start to cry because it was such a neat process to watch these 4 and 5-year-olds talk about such a hard topic to, you know, talk about. And so I sat back and let them run with it. And then, you know, I told parents what we were doing, and they were on board with it from then on. So, you know, I started bringing in a lot more books and stuff like that. And at the end of the process, we made our own class book. And it was dedicated to our family and why I am special. And the kids drew their pictures and wrote their words, and we had the book published. So this is Why I Am Special book. And from our littlest ones to our new 3-year-olds up to our kindergartners, all drew pictures. And this is a book that I will cherish for the rest of my life.
That's really wonderful, Lori. Yeah, thanks for sharing all of that. And you know, that first children's book that you showed about all the colors we are, that was part of a multicultural book collection that Learning Grove was fortunate enough to receive a grant to purchase for all of our early childhood classrooms. I'm so glad that you were able to show that and to see the impact that it had on the children as far as sparking conversations and helping them to understand. Yes, we have differences, but in a lot of ways, we are the same. We are very much alike. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, great. Any other books in that collection that had an impact on you?
Yes, but I think that one had the most impact in the classroom. We read The Anti-Racist Baby in there, but that didn't really spark as much interest as the melanin. We had a lot of kids that were into science. So they wanted to figure out what the melanin was in our skin and how come they can't see it directly. And they brought in magnifying glasses and was looking at each other's skins and honing up to the light and, you know, talking about that. So that book, I think, had the most impact on my classroom. And I think that's where we need to go with this, you know, topic and getting it into the classroom is you've got to start young. Have to start.
Okay, books are a wonderful way to get conversations started with children. But what are some other items you might suggest introducing into the classroom to encourage children's conversations? Learning about puzzles, dolls, what?
Yeah, I brought in a lot of the multicultural dolls into like the little peoples, into the families, into the block area. And I also started including that into my dramatic play area So we had not only the Black babies and the white babies, but then I started introducing babies with Down syndrome and that kind of stuff to spark the interest in that another part of our topic. Okay, so there's Black people, there's white people, and then there's people that don't quite look like us, that are, have a little bit of chromosomes and stuff like that are different, that makes them different. So I started bringing all that stuff in too. So I think it's very important to bring it into every part of the classroom, not just the coloring paper or the, skin tone paper and the markers. You have to introduce it into every area so that they have an opportunity to build and talk and, use little peoples to talk with and have conversations with. And believe it or not, some of the conversations that I had with my kids repeated it over into the block area. So it was, like I said before, it was such a neat process to watch and to see where they would take this. And it was, one of those aha moments as a teacher to like, wow, okay, I introduced something and they took it and ran with it and they made it their own. They owned it.
Great. And you mentioned that it's a process, and that's what all of this work is. It's a process. It's not you introduce one thing and you're done.
Exactly.
It's an ongoing thing. Now you're working in a different learning growth center, and there's a lot more diversity amongst
Yes.
your families and your staff members.
Yes.
Has this transition changed the response of the children to the introduction of the multicultural books and other materials, or is it is it pretty much the same? And also, I'm curious, have you gotten any comments or responses from the children's families about what you're doing?
Yes, we have, as a guide, I am now the assistant director, so I can help guide the teachers that really haven't taken the concept and kind of ran with it yet, and coach them on how I did it, and, bring it in the books and sitting down and having those crucial conversations with the kids. And I think that's where a lot of teachers miss. They don't have those crucial conversations with their kids. Sitting down like I did with the book and discussing what is actually in the book and what the difference are between, white people and Black people. There's not really that much difference, just the skin tone. We all have hair, we all have eyes, we all run, we all jump, we all do everything. So it's sitting down and having those crucial conversations with kids is the key. And so with my new role here, I've been able to go into the classrooms and kind of coach the teachers around this subject, which has been great too. I love that part of, because I'm so passionate about it. And I guess I look at the world, I don't want to say colorblind, but I look at the world as a person, as people first. Okay. So, it's been a great journey, and this is the next step to coaching and getting this concept out. And so yes, and I've heard a lot of feedback from parents saying, wow, this is great, I'm glad people are finally kind of talking about this. And so they're applauding the efforts that we're doing. So, and I don't want to stop here. There's more to do.
Right. I mean, it's a journey. Just like I always tell members of my DEI task force, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you're going to work on some things, and then you find other things. Oh, we haven't tackled that yet. So it's an ongoing process. Okay, well, recently, Learning Grow participated in a DEI survey that was created by a consultant group called Themby Speaks. The second part of the survey included interviews and focus groups for staff, families, board members, and some funders. One thing we learned from our families is that their appreciation of the work we're doing to introduce their children to diversity that exists all around us. And they mentioned not only racial diversity, but other types of diversities. You mentioned children with different abilities. That's one thing they all said. But they also said that they would like to learn from us some other ways that they can support their children, what their children are learning from us when they're at home with them. And what would you suggest that the parents do, particularly those who live in neighborhoods where there's very little racial or ethnic diversity?
I think I would encourage them to go to different areas that they normally don't go to, like when they're taking their kids to the park, take them to a different park that they normally not go to, where there's more multicultural children, the more Black children, more Asian children, and just talk to them and letting them check out some of our books, and letting them take them home and have the crucial conversations with the children at home. So starting like a lending library that they can check out some of our anti-racial books and some of our diversity books, and so that they can have the conversations. And then I encourage them to join different groups, join like the Mommy and Me, or different groups that there's more culturally diverse.
Okay. The last part of our guideline talks about celebrating those feel-good moments and giving yourself and others grace, knowing you are on a journey to get there. And this indeed has been a journey. I remember when we first met during the first meeting of the first cohort of our anti-racist learning circles. And like you said, it was very emotional. We all had to do a lot of self-searching.
Yes.
And we did it together. But one thing that we learned, our experiences are all different.
Yes.
But it's a journey. We all grew up certain ways. We all grew up in certain neighborhoods, went to certain schools, and our exposure to people who were different was limited in a lot of ways. But one thing about this journey, there's no shame or no blame.
Exactly.
Your upbringing is what it was, but now we are here today in 2022. We're looking at what's before us, and we have to decide, how are we going to approach this? And I have to agree with Tom Lotman, our senior director of the Innovation Lab, who said that this is a first chance. We are early childhood educators. We have children's young minds in close proximity to everything, and we can have the opportunity to influence the way their minds develop and their attitudes towards other people and other things. Yes, there are going to be bumps in the road. Yes, occasionally we might run into someone who disagrees with what we're trying to teach. But as early childhood educators, we have an obligation, as NAEYC stated. We have an obligation to raise an equitable generation, and we do that by showing them what equity really means. So
exactly. Yeah. Sparking the interest of the children, whether it's the same or not, but we see differences, and we need to celebrate the differences in each other. And like I said before, we have to start young. We have to get them young, because like you said, your upbringing is what it is. And, by the time they get to 13, 14 years old, they've already formed their opinion if nobody talks about it. So if we don't start at this young of an age, then it's just going to keep recycling and recycling and recycling. So as early childhood educators, we do need to start young.
Absolutely. And we need to learn how not to be color silent, but to be able to talk about it freely, because it's part of life. It's part of this world that we all live in.
Exactly.
Well, Lori, it's been a pleasure working with you over it's been about a year and a half since
it has been
first cohort. And I can see the changes that you've made in your approach to dealing with the children in your classrooms. And now look at you, you're a mentor to the other teachers in your center. So that's just one great example of what can happen when we approach this work and realize it's our duty to do it.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed working with you, and we'll continue because it's not done. Okay, we hope you all have enjoyed this podcast series, where we have given you some guidelines for talking to children about race and racism. And we hope you will stay tuned because, like we said, the work is not finished. Have a great day.